For
as a
sure.
state.
For sure. And on the issue of homelessness, it's a
Yeah.
really I think it's kind of ramped up in the past 4 or 5 years. We are seeing things that we haven't seen in Minneapolis. I
Yeah.
think Rick and I have lived in Minneapolis I know he just moved, but we've lived in Minneapolis for the past 6 years,
Yeah.
6, 7 years. And there's been a lot of there's been a lot of changes along the way. We're seeing a lot more of these encampments, like
Mm.
even Lake Street, like you are kind of seeing once you get off that exit off 35W,
Yeah.
you're seeing all the people lined up. Um, how do we solve this? How do
Yeah.
we combat
Yeah.
this? I know that
Yeah.
we don't want to just sweep and bulldoze
Yeah.
people out of the way, but how do we get
Yeah.
people into these proper areas that they need to be at to get better?
Exactly. That's a very good question. And so, um, none of us want encampments, right? Um, I don't want it. You all don't want it. People that are unhoused don't want it.
Mhm.
But it's the reality we're gonna live in unless we address it by providing long-term solutions, not just short-term feel-good band-aids fixes. And so we have a mayor that campaigned in 2017 when he first ran for mayor, saying that he's going to end homelessness within 5 years. But right now, there are more unhoused neighbors than when he first took office. And so that's a failure. And we know that, again, bulldozing our unhoused neighbors block by block does not house them. So we need to do a few things. Number one, we need to take a housing first approach and provide housing whenever possible for them, but also providing wraparound services and providing that individualized support person by person. We know that we need to move back the response around homelessness from regulatory services back into health because we know it's a public health crisis
Mhm.
and it doesn't belong in regulatory services, and that shows you the way in which the mayor is pursuing this is just wrong.
For sure.
And so we want to move it back into health also because, again, it is a public health crisis. We know that there are spreads of infectious diseases within our encampments also,
Mhm.
like syphilis and hepatitis and HIV and so on.
Mhm.
That's why we need to have better sanitation. We need to have sanitary stations. We need to have safe needle disposals. We need to have case workers, county and city, to go in and to provide the help needed in a provide a good faith effort.
Mhm.
Because when I spoke to folks on the ground, when I went to these encampments, when I talked to people, what I hear all the time is that city staff would go in and they'd say, "We're gonna bulldoze your encampments, but here are these resources you have." And
Mhm.
they take it and they're like, "Wait, these shelter beds, there's no beds in the shelter, and these numbers don't work."
Yeah.
It's not a good faith effort. They're just saying, "Here you go, good luck."
Mhm.
They get their social security cards thrown away, their driver's license is thrown away,
Mhm.
their belongings. We had when one of the encampments got cleared a few weeks ago, we had a mother that was homeless say that her child's ashes also got thrown away, and that's heartbreaking. That should never happen, right?
Mhm.
And so these are all things that are happening. And by the way, it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars every time you do this.
Yeah.
And so we need to do it taking a housing first approach. We need to provide the solutions I just laid out. We need to lock arms with our county and state to provide funding also for more shelter support, to housing support. I want to help build more tiny homes
Mhm.
with the county, with the city, so that we can provide not just housing, but we know where they're going to be at to provide the wraparound services for them. Again, we can partner with the county because they know the formula also in ending veterans homelessness.
Yeah.
There's a whole host of ways in which we can address this in a long term way, but unfortunately, there is no plan currently by the mayor, and there's no intent to have a plan either.
Yeah.
And so, what I hear from neighbors and what I hear from folks is that they're upset, and
Yeah.
rightfully so. I've had a mother in Phillips neighborhood, for example, tell me that I can't have my 6-year-old play in the front yard without picking up a needle, right? And that shouldn't be happening. And so it's unfair to our unhoused neighbors, it's unfair to our neighbors, it's unfair to our city. We just need a mayor that's willing to put in the work to address this in a long term way.
For sure.
I'm curious when you take a homeless person off the streets and put them in housing, let's say, is there is there like a vetting process of like maybe like people that are addicted to drugs that are homeless, or people that just don't have the money that are homeless that would love to live in a a homeless shelter or housing or whatever? And is there an idea of we're going to put the people that maybe aren't drug addicts in better neighborhoods around that can maybe be closer to kids or whatever versus the ones that are homeless because of drugs, they need to go in maybe places that are more, maybe like a downtown where there isn't kids running around and
Mhm.
playing, or not as many schools within a certain mile radius. And then, maybe that would help them also enjoy living in their homeless encampment versus I don't want to sleep in the same room next to someone that's,
Yeah.
maybe a little crazy in the head. I'm just homeless because financial reasons or whatever it may be.
That's a very good question. And that's why it's important to beef up our support at the city level with more staff and partner with the county, because we need to provide those individualized plans. Everyone has a unique story and unique situation in which why they're experiencing homelessness. And we know that it's not enough to just be, here are your keys, here's your place, you're on your own now. Those wraparound services are really important. For example, when I was visiting the Franklin and Minnehaha area and the Franklin Cedar Bridge and talking to some of our folks on Little Earth, that individualized approach is extremely important, but also they want to see us take an approach of traditional healing and traditional medicine, um, having culturally specific shelter for them, for
Mm,
example. And so that's just one example. And so when we talk about the housing first approach, when we talk about providing these support and services, that's why, again, this individualized plans are important, because we're not going to just have that one size fits all model and push people into housing and set them up for failure. No, a lot of folks are going to need long term solution, long term wraparound services, long term help, entry into low barrier jobs, for example, so they can self sustain ongoing and so on. And so those are the stories that we've been learning along the way on the campaign.
for sure. Some of these encampments have become sites of violence. And let's say that we do increase sanitary conditions and we are even giving options out there to potential housing for the homeless. How do we At what point is there need for intervention? Where do you believe that, there's gotta be that line that has to be drawn?
Yeah, that's a good question. So a few things to that. Number one, the gun violence that we're seeing in our encampments are occurring under this current mayoral administration.
Mhm.
And if it's an issue with one encampment and you bulldoze them, it's going to be an issue again in the next encampment, and that's going to continue and continue and continue.
Yep.
And so, number two, the issue of gun violence isn't unique to encampments. We've learned that our schools aren't safe. We just
Mhm.
saw Annunciation happen.
Yep.
We know our college campuses aren't safe. We know public spaces aren't safe. We got to deal with gun violence in a way in which we pass gun legislation to keep people safe.
Yeah.
But also, we have to make sure that we are keeping our unhoused neighbors safe in a way in which, while we're providing the services you laid out, that out of state bad actors in general, aren't don't have the opportunity to engage.
Yeah.
We can have boots on the ground organizations on there which are already doing good work. We can have violence interrupters in there. We can have the city partner with them to ensure that while we're housing people, people are being kept safe. There are ways to go about it, but again, this is largely a symptom of not just mental health and addiction, but also poverty. We know that one of the largest reason in which people experience homelessness are rental evictions. People are getting evicted. And
Yes.
so we need to keep people housed simply also. And so there's multiple ways in which we need to go about this
Yeah.
to ensure that people are kept safe. But gun violence is not unique to just our encampments.
Mm.
And it's easy in the media and for the mayor administration to say that, because um, those are folks that can't advocate for themselves, and it's the neighborhoods can be frustrated and say like, we don't want this anymore because it's not safe. There's gun violence, and it provides that protection for
Yeah.
him, right?
Mhm.
But the reality is that the failure lies on the mayor.
Right. Right. I really like your idea on tiny homes. I think that that's kind of a cool way to definitely work with people who are unsheltered. Um, what is your vision for that? I'm really curious because I'm thinking in my head, like, like the trailers, like the truck trailers, and they're like
Yeah.
reconstructing them into houses. Like, what does that look like for you?
I think so. This is a great plan that's been also laid out by Council Member from Ward 9, Jason Chavez.
Great.
It's going to take funding from a cross-jurisdictional approach also. There's public spaces that we can use at the city level to provide uh, tiny homes for folks so that we can engage with them. We can provide a space in which they can sleep, they can house themselves, and also they can get that ongoing support for the wraparound services, whether they need mental health support, whether they need support around treatment, drug treatment, whether they need support around um, access to employment, for example, and so on. Uh, and I think that's the right approach to take. But
Mm.
right now, the issue we have is that number one, we're not only sweeping and clearing out encampments,
Yeah,
but when you throw away like some of their key identifiers, like their birth certificates, like social security cards, it makes it harder for county and city workers to find them and identify them and
for
know where they're
sure.
at. And
Yeah.
so it's just making the problem even worse.
For sure. I mean, it definitely seems like it makes it harder for them to get out of the current hole that they are in by
Absolutely.
taking away a lot of these documents. But with having city workers, with having in, a better approach to public safety, we're adding all of these different teams, and then if we're putting in tiny homes, where does the budget come from? How do we come up with the money as
Yeah.
a city or as a state for something like this?
Well, a few things. Number one, it's going to take being more strategic with our own budget and preventing wasteful spending.
Mhm,
And number two, also having that cross jurisdictional approach with our county and with our state.
mhm.
On the first side, for example, there's tens of millions of dollars we waste on police settlements alone, right? When they settle cases for abuse or killing or what have
Yeah,
you, or any violations. And so if we just implement some of the police accountability measures that we have. We make sure we have better training. We make sure we're not promoting officers that have problematic history. We can prevent the city from bankrupting ourselves, spending all that money on all these settlements, right? And I think that that's just one way in which we can save money on the budget side. But again, we're going to have to partner with our county and with our state to secure more funding to make sure it's possible. The city cannot go at this alone. And so that's the kind of approach I want to leverage my relationships that I currently have as state senator to bring in those dollars because I'm a Minneapolis delegation member. I'm friends with them. I'm friends with the chairs of major committees like human services, like housing, and so on. Um, Endorsed by Commissioner Angela Conley, also, who's a big supporter of a big ally in terms of finding solutions for our unhoused neighbors and not just sweeping them away. And so those are the situations in which I would approach.
for sure. Let's say in a perfect world that we have everything. All of these things come in. We have tiny
Yeah.
homes, we have the correct
Yeah.
policing, we have everything. How do you ensure that people will stay in these new facilities, if maybe their lives aren't changing enough for them to maybe afford rent or
Yeah.
get into
Yeah.
better situations, but how do we ensure that they don't fall back into encampments or
Yeah.
any bad situations, I guess?
That's why the ongoing support is critical.
Mhm.
Not just having a one-off, you're housed, you're on your own. That's why data and keeping good reporting is extremely important as well,
Yeah.
so that you know what's working, what's not working. If there's certain situations that are not working, what can we tweak to ensure that folks are continued to be better serviced and um, continued on in the right direction.
Mhm.
Uh, that transparency is really important so folks are up to date in the city about what's happening and why it's happening. We need to partner with the county to make sure that our reporting methods are accurate. I know, for example, the mayor at the beginning of the year said there are only 27 unhoused neighbors left or homeless folks left in the city. And we knew that that was false. That was there
Yeah.
was no way, and county data uh, proved that that was false as well.
Mhm.
And so we need a mayor that's transparent and honest about the situation on hand and what's happening. But without good data collecting, without having good faith efforts in partnering with the county, without having the continued ongoing support rather than just the one-off solutions, none of that's possible.
For sure.
With in these tiny homes, like, I mean, with the data collecting and making sure people don't go back and, are homeless and in the streets and causing trouble, what do you, like, plan on putting, like, let's say, like, inside of these tiny homes as, like, amenities of living, right? In this day and age, like, I think even just having a distraction with people's attention spans and
Mm.
times, like, I don't know, this might seem kinda funny, but putting in these tiny homes, like, you putting, like, a PlayStation 5 in there or, a Apple TV
Yeah,
with the Netflix and Hulu and, a somewhat newer cell phone with Wi-Fi and
yeah,
stuff, like, to where these people kind of can sit back and relax and kill 10 hours in their house and
yeah,
not have to feel like they need to be outside causing trouble, doing whatever they were doing, going to work, coming home, and knowing that they can come home to a comfortable environment and not just, sitting at a blank wall
yeah,
and, just looking out the window and seeing the life that they left behind that they
yeah.
could easily walk out to.
Yeah, absolutely. And providing them with that, but also the city needs more public open spaces in which people can engage in a safe way and have recreational activities. But also, it's important for folks to have the opportunity to get employment and get good jobs and good paying jobs, working in the city, working in community. And I think what you mentioned, coupling with good paying jobs, providing the ongoing support for them, keeping up to date on their situation, their living conditions, um, not just again, pushing them in and saying you're on your own. I think those are the approaches that we need to take as a city that can be successful. And again, with the reporting piece as well, if something's not working, we can immediately identify what's not working and how we can improve and do better. But uh, the county, again, does have the formula. They've ended veterans' homelessness within the county, providing them with housing, providing them with the ongoing support and services that they need. And it's been proven to be a successful model.
How do you feel when people like Donald Trump take credit for things like ending veteran homelessness and when they say things like, "Hey, I take care of the vets," and all this other things, but you know that these things are from more local policies. How do you feel about that? And how do you guys kind of combat that ideology,
Yeah.
if that makes sense?
That's why it's important to have ongoing dialogue with community.
Yeah.
Again, keeping them up to date on what you're doing, bringing them along in the decision making process, but also educating folks once things are passed to let them know this is what we worked on, this is what we got across the finish line, this is how we did it, this is how much it's going to cost, this is what we're expecting in terms of results. And it's up to us as legislators, uh, uh, elected officials, city, county, state, to provide that information to community to let them know what's going on because our jobs don't end when you pass legislation. It's not just we're going to work with you to pass this. We pass it. We're good to go.
Mhm.
Um, you have to work with community to pass it, and then work on educating folks on what you've also gotten passed as well. And I
For
think that
sure.
that piece is really important. Otherwise,
Yeah.
the narrative can be taken.
Yeah, because you are the first person that I've ever heard say that we have
Mm.
ended veteran homelessness
Yeah.
here, and I mean that's amazing, and it
Yeah.
definitely I think gives an optimistic future towards taking care of our homeless neighbors here
Absolutely.
as well. Um, I kind of want to go into housing too.
Yeah.
For the non-homeless,
Yeah.
um, rent prices are skyrocketing
Yeah.
right now. Um, Houses are becoming more unaffordable for people that are my age, whether that's due to bigger businesses,
Yeah.
corporations buying a lot of these spaces, or just
Yeah.
even the current overall economy. How do you plan to attack that as mayor?
So two pieces to that would be um, the renters piece and the home ownership piece. In 2021, the city of Minneapolis had a ballot measure around rent control
Mhm.
that passed. And when we talk about rent stabilization, we talk about how the city passed the ballot measure in which neighbors wanted the city to pursue and explore a way we can implement this. And we got to do our job in doing that. We know we have to protect our renters. There are folks that uh, bring up, well, St. Paul tried doing this, it didn't work out. My argument would be a few things. Number one, I believe St. Paul didn't work out because of a whole host of issues from a nationwide building shortage to like inflation, on and on and on. But we could also learn from the mistakes of what happened in the past. And we can also build more affordable housing on top of that. When I say affordable, I mean people not having to spend more than a third of their rent on housing. And so rent stabilization is just one tool in the toolbox. And this kind of ties into the ownership piece because one thing we got to pursue also is TOPA, the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act,
Mhm.
so that we can keep these properties in community hands, and
Yep.
which is something that the mayor did not support.
Mhm.
And so, one of the bigger issues we're having as well, and you laid it out well, very well, is that there's a large number of out-of-state entities from California and Atlanta and New York and Florida that are buying up large swaths of property.
Yep.
And their intent and their goal isn't to keep people housed. Their intent isn't to keep rents low. Their intent and their motive is profits to make more money.
Yeah.
And so we got to think about a way how we can keep our housing stock um, in the hands of keep it locally owned.
For
And I
sure.
think that's critical. And also, we hear from folks that we need to create a pathway to home ownership too.
Mhm.
At the state, we worked on something called the First Generation Home Buyer Assistance Program, which was huge, providing folks that were first generation home purchasers, first time home buyers, the opportunity to get assistance in doing so,
Mhm.
and maybe educating folks better on the resources that are available as well. Um, and I remember one story, and this goes back to the renters piece. I got reached out to by some tenants, I believe in Loring Park, and they were telling me about how they were living in pretty much subhuman conditions.
Mhm.
When I went to visit it, the front door was broken. Anyone and everyone was walking in, which is a risk. When you walk in, the mailboxes on the side were all completely broken. So the folks that were living in the building had to go to the post office to get their mail, which is an inconvenience. There was black mold in units and in the building. We had folks that are unhoused sleeping in the laundry room. Units in the summer didn't have AC and no heat in the winter. On and on and on. They
Yeah.
formed a tenant union and they were fighting back. But uh, the issue is that even when they won, um, it seems that and by the way, I believe it was owned by an out of state entity as well.
Mhm.
It seemed that uh, this uh, this property owner would rather uh, eat the cost of the fine than do the right thing and provide the fixes for the people.
Right.
And so we need real enforcement with teeth,
Yeah.
in which we're protecting our tenants as well,
For
because
sure.
that's just not happening right now.
For sure. Quick adjustment. Quick adjustment.
Just so you stay behind.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I know that you're hoping to add to the minimum wage.
Yeah.
And that should hopefully in effect help people with affordability of rent and other things at the current climate that we're in. Um a big question that I kind of have for you is we've already seen a downturn in Minneapolis in terms of big business leaving because they can't afford um the type of increases that we've already had on corporations but even small businesses on the minimum wage
Mm.
current prices. I know for sure Apple has left uptown. H&M, a lot of that block, even just on, I think that's Lake or Hennepin. I think that's Lake, but
Yeah.
a lot of that block, even we don't have a Nike store
Yeah.
in the downtown or Minneapolis area because of pricing, because of hourly wages. How do you expect for big businesses to want to pay for employees at 20 an hour, but also how do small businesses survive? Because I know that
Yeah.
we've experienced a lot with us being here since 2020. The prices have shifted
Yeah.
up on minimum wage, and we've obviously been cooperating with that. But now we're talking about an extra $5 hike
Yeah.
per hour.
Um,
And I don't see how we can necessarily survive paying for our employees like
yeah.
that.
Yeah.
What is kind of the workaround on that in your eyes?
Yep, and not just city. Actually, there is state level legislation that I supported that would have provided a statewide $20 an hour minimum wage. So there was a city approach and a state approach as well. You brought up Apple. I think Apple. I think the reason they stated in which they left was because of crime. They're saying that uh, their uh, their property was getting broken into, things were getting stolen,
Mhm,
and things like that. So I
mhm,
think they had a safety concern.
mhm.
But again, they are a $1 trillion
Right.
entity, and so I think they're going to be just fine.
Yep.
If we talk about wages, we talk about supporting small businesses in
Mm,
those conversations. Those are conversations we can have, but
yeah,
I think Apple will be. I think they'll be just fine.
for sure.
Um, but these are some of the same conversations we were having when we were having the $15 an hour minimum wage
Mhm,
discussions in the past,
mhm.
in which we're saying businesses will flee, we'll lose everything. I think that the climate we're in around inflation is still an issue.
Yeah.
And we have to talk about both supporting small businesses, but also the workers.
Mhm.
If people can't afford groceries and rents, healthcare, on and on and on, uh, then it's going to be a whole lot more expensive providing the social services and support that they need
Mhm.
rather than just giving them a decent living wage. And
For
so
sure.
that's the kind of stuff we want to engage with. And by the way, when we provide a living wage for people, then not only are they able to support themselves, their family, those are also money. That's also money being spent in the local economy where they can shop.
Mhm.
In your shop, they can shop at the grocery store. They can shop locally and continue to generate the and sustain the local economy. But if we have folks that are paid less than minimum wage, then spending gets cut short
Right.
locally. People are more heavily reliant on social services support from city, county, state,
For sure.
and so we want to make sure that we're setting up people for success and the workers for success, which is also why we wanted to support the Labor Standards Board, which the mayor vetoed, because these are the conversations we can have
Mhm.
around what are the facts around increasing not just wages,
Mhm.
but worker protections, and how do we also support small businesses
Yeah.
in a way in which when we're making decisions, how do we bring them in the decision making process?
Mhm.
I've had a business owner, for example, reach out to me saying that his business on Hennepin got shut down because of the construction that was occurring, and if he lost 80, 90% plus of the foot traffic, right? Couldn't keep up with the lease. And
Yeah.
not only was it his business, but it was his sole source of income for the
Mhm.
family. And so that's heartbreaking. That shouldn't be happening. And
Yeah.
if the city is going to be doing that, we got to engage them in the decision making process. This is what's going to happen. This is how long the project's going to be
Mhm.
taking. Maybe these are the grants we can provide for you in the short term. If the project goes beyond that, then this is how we can provide ongoing support.
Mhm.
I think those are the approaches that we need to take.
For sure. And so at least from what I'm understanding, the goal is that the more money that we give people working an hourly wage, at least on the minimum wage level, the more money that will be spent with smaller businesses, right?
Absolutely, it's good for everyone.
Yep,
Absolutely.
for sure. Um,
And the initiative that is being taken right now to help grow like the businesses that are more like art centered that help
Mhm.
uplift like music artists, art
Yes.
painters, stuff like that. I forget what it's called. Do you remember what it's called?
I'm
It's
not
like a
sure.
grant that's given out.
Yes,
You
there is. Yes.
is I see that as a kind of a correlation with, minimum wage being increased and maybe big businesses leaving, but there's all these other businesses, maybe like ourselves and like a lot of the ones that have been
Yeah,
granted the grant or the lump sum of money to, get one of these empty storefronts in downtown,
exactly.
decorate it nice, and now they can flourish their business to another level. And then now they can afford to pay two, three more
Yeah.
employees this new minimum wage. Is that something that you plan to continue to do, to amplify, to highlight more up and coming businesses that are, within the creative field? Because I know we've talked a lot about community and a lot of the businesses that have gotten those grants or
Hmm.
lump sum of money, whatever it's called. They do a lot of stuff for the community, and I think if we keep highlighting businesses like that that are local, that do stuff for community members, and
Yeah,
creativeness people in the city, it may continue to grow this place and become a tourist,
exactly.
destination. We don't necessarily need the big, box store type of brands to come in when we kind of have that creativeness in Minnesota or
We
Minneapolis, and it just needs to be
absolutely.
highlighted.
We have the people, we have the resources, we have the entrepreneurial spirit, we have the creativity, like you mentioned, and those are some things that we're speaking about on the campaign as well. Um, the vacant storefronts, especially like in downtown, how do we get more small businesses to attract them um, to engage with them to fill up those vacancies? How do we provide those ongoing support? Uh, Not only in the short term, but our vision also long term is how do we provide enough support so that we can create ownership so that you're not leasing these empty storefronts, but
Yeah.
also owning the property in which you're currently leasing or renting out. Um, how we provide more grants for creative stuff like arts, like you mentioned, like our musicians, our artists, our folks that also want to sell vintage clothing like you guys have out here and things like that. And so those are the things we're talking about on the campaign, and highlighting the small business support rather than these mega corporations that will do just fine. A second piece to that also is that there are some um, office spaces that can be converted to housing. And in attracting small businesses, what I hear from folks is that they want an environment in which is more walkable, more accessible. If we have more people living downtown, also, that can be more prospective customers and people that could walk in and provide more foot traffic for businesses as well. And so we got to provide the opportunity for downtown to flourish so that our businesses can succeed also.
Yeah, because if we can somewhat become more of like a tourist destination or a place where, you take a weekend or a week-long trip to Minneapolis or
Mhm.
Minnesota, I think especially now with like cannabis becoming legalized, it's like a spot where, that was like a spot like when it first started, it was, oh, we'll go out there and, cannabis is legalized. It'll be a fun little getaway or whatever. And I think like we are on the verge of that. Our
Yeah.
sports teams are getting a little bit better. Maybe
Yeah.
people travel here to watch our sports teams.
Yeah.
But I think like, the one thing we are missing is a very like walkable, shoppable downtown,
Yeah.
and we don't, I think
Exactly.
if there was more, businesses like you said, like us, or more artistic, more, one-off clothing brands that like to do their thing, or even like media companies like us and the other ones in town that, highlight local music, and when artists perform at the Armory or, at local First Ave venues, they have a spot to, walk in downtown within, drive the bus around the corner, and, we can build this energy in our city
Mhm.
of, when artists do come to town here, there is that hip hop lifestyle. There's that pop and R&B lifestyle in Minneapolis, and you know, it's cool when you go there. Oh, I know that business. Oh, I know that business. Oh,
Yes.
yeah, they started here. That's their flagship store.
Yep.
Stuff like that. That I
Yes.
think is starting to grow. And I would just like to continue to see that be a big
Absolutely.
effort because
Absolutely. 100%. And that's why the connectiveness and the accessibility piece is really important. If you go downtown, you want to be able to walk around, you want to be able to bike, you want to be able to ride those Lime scooters. If you want to be able to ride the bus. And so the accessibility piece is extremely important as well for everyone. And that's the vision we also have
yeah.
for downtown.
Yeah, because I have noticed a lot of businesses, including ourselves, like we'll get a storefront just outside of downtown or outside of the big
Mm,
popular areas because it's a lot cheaper, a
yes.
tenth of the price.
Yep.
But it makes people have to drive to get to you versus all the foot traffic,
Exactly.
and then it doesn't really build the image. Like all these businesses exist, but it doesn't build the image of it's all in downtown. But
Exactly.
yeah, I like it.
So you were part of a very progressive campaign, also grassroots campaign. How much of your movement would you say comes from social media?
Um, I would say that social media is an important tool to engage folks, especially younger folks,
Mhm.
and talk about the message that resonates with everyone. Uh, I would say, as a senator, what's been important to me is not just as a candidate, but as an elected official, continuing or maintaining constant communication with people in community, on social media, in the media, so that we're not only connected during campaign season, so people know what we're about, know that I remained consistent throughout
Yeah.
the time I've been in office, uh, speaking towards some of the successes we've had together,
Mhm.
some of the barriers and obstacles we've also faced, and I think continuing that as from a senator to a mayoral candidate
Yeah.
was a pretty easy transition because we've been trying to maintain that
Mm.
throughout the entire time. And so it's been a way in which people get to know who I am.
For sure.
And I remember when we launched, within the first day, we've had, I think, a little over 200 people sign up on the website to volunteer. Now we're over or close to, I think, 1,500 people. And so those are a lot of people that are energized, not just about the campaign, but want to put in the amount of volunteer support that
Mhm.
help energize campaigns.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of videos go viral. Um, we've seen, but also people get up to date. Like when things happen, when there's like the DFL endorsement getting revoked, people wake up to that and they say, well, we got to knock more doors. We got a phone bank. And then
Yeah.
that also created that nationwide attention where we got picked up by CNN and MSNBC
For
and
sure.
all the other outlets in which we were able to share our message about of affordability and accountability and things like that. And so those are some of the successes that we've experienced.